here we have some questions that could have the same answer. One of them is how to create light, the light which is the protective flame of our steps. And another one is, what is the role of Figueira's work? What we call as work of Figueira is the inner work, inner discipline, and inner healing. In group, innerly and externally, we seek to fulfill these tasks, which is to work innerly, of creating an inner discipline, and of us healing, because it is only the being who can heal themselves. Everything comes for this to happen, but if they do not heal themselves, nothing will be solved. In the inner work that we do, connected with the inner group of souls, which is incarnated here, we seek to recognize the energy of a ray that works with us, of protecting this energy, of being careful so that this energy is not dissipated or disvirtuated, and transmitting this energy through everything that we do, transmitting the qualities of this energy, allowing ourselves to be permeated by it. And here, the energies that are felt the most is the energy of devotion, which is also called as the sixth ray, and the energy of order, the energy of doing everything orderly, which is also called as the seventh ray. This devotion is a devotion towards that which is the highest for us, the most elevated for us. It's not devotion for objects, things, or people. It is an energy that elevates us, uplifts us. But to do this, it's necessary for us to really be decided, to have an ascensional path, to be decided to evolve, uplifting from the levels, from the planes in which we are to higher planes. But this should not only be a theory, this should be done in life, in daily life, in human life. That is this aspiration to be more and more perfect, more elevated, more pure, more orderly, and use this order in everything that is done, in everything that is lived. Work in Figueira is not a theoretical work. It's not an intellectual, mental work in which we learn things, and then eventually we will not have a way of doing them. The work is the practice of this, and so that this practice can be more strict, and so that there is a possibility of practicing these energies, this devotion and order, of practicing them in life, then this is why Figueira offers the possibility of an external life in a determining physical place. But if this physical place stops representing the elevation of life, if this physical place becomes a horizontal life or a material life simply, then there is no reason for this physical place to exist anymore. This physical place is the practice of this devotion for everything that is most elevated in our concept, in our point of view of seeing that which is more elevated. And it is also a life of order, of discipline, of harmony. For this to be possible, for this devotion as an energy and this order also as energy to be possible, we have to be innerly and with our intention guarded to more elevated consciousnesses, to the hierarchy. When there is the energy of devotion and order, it is not difficult for you to be stable in the aura of a hierarchy, because the hierarchies here, they emanate this energy of devotion and order, the 6th and the 7th ray. There has never been a time like this on earth in which humanity is devoted to the highest and living with order, rhythm, and discipline. There has never been a time like this in which humanity had more possibilities of approaching the aura of this hierarchy. And this hierarchy of 6th and 7th ray is very basic here. There are consciousnesses, or there are beings in superior planes which represent this energy, and therefore they filter, they channel, they project this energy here in the inner planes of this center, and therefore we just need to aspire to what is highest and live this aspiration and try to do everything with order, and we'll be able to perceive the 6th and 7th ray here. But in practice, we would have, as it has been said, to aspire to that which is most elevated, not just for the more elevated energy, but also aspire to the more elevated knowledge and a more elevated way of life. This should be an aspiration, this should be a goal, so that we can notice, so that we can feel the presence of these energies and hierarchies. Devotion, this which is present here in a hierarchy, this devotion has in itself the quality of elevating life and beings. When beings are seeking it, and when life is seeking to express it, so devotion elevates, devotion uplifts all of this. And devotion makes our desire, our human desire, our material desire, our more inferior desire to be transformed into a spiritual aspiration, an aspiration to that which is more elevated. This is a work of the energy of devotion within us. This is the response that it gives when we seek this elevation. And rhythm, order, or the 7th ray, it stimulates, it proportionates this merging of that which we are seeking and aspiring with our lives. So it seems to be impossible to place our most elevated aspiration in life. It's impossible for us, but not for the 7th ray, not for this energy of order, which is the ray of one of the basic hierarchies here. And this very same 7th ray that we call as Antwerk, besides stimulating this merging of the object of our devotion with our lives, the seventh ray starts to help us to realize our inner reality. So those who want to know their own inner reality, they have the energy here to do this. It's just necessary to want to find out about this. That is, to live this external reality that everyone lives at a service title as the fulfillment of karmic laws or service to the earth of service to humanity. Therefore, the perception of this inner reality, of this inner life, of that which happens to us within there, of us really wanting to live consciously within there, it seems to be impossible, but it is impossible for us as creatures. But the seventh ray, this energy of order and rhythm, shadow, works in this sense of making this knowledge available. Therefore, this energy of order here, the seventh ray, is a beginning element here. It's an element that works as a bridge for our inner reality. And the seventh ray is what gives the group the impulse to fulfill the purpose so that the group can fulfill the task. So a lot comes from individuals, from the group, but it's the seventh ray that really solves this, and which gives us the final impulse so that the group or individuals may not distance themselves from their purpose, because in this world, you know that the normal thing is to distance ourselves from the higher purpose, being called by minimal things, small things in relation to those that the individual has already visualized, that the individual is already aspiring. This seventh ray present here in the hierarchy, which is the command, this organizes forces through the correct rhythm, through order, through discipline. But the seventh ray can only incarnate and can only work permanently and more deeply if the group and if the components are constant. If this is done with fidelity, and not to do this in a moment and then not do it again and then forget about it and do less. So with this, the seventh ray does not have a field to incarnate. The seventh ray sends stimulations, impulses, but it does not have any conditions of working more widely through the group. And in the seventh ray, to do this work, the seventh ray will dissolve this tendency of doing everything at our own minor movements, our own impulses. Anyway, the way of humanity, which is a mix of pastimes of our experiences on earth or in other places of the universe. So the inner work here is especially this one with these two rays. With these two rays, devotion and order, when they are assumed, and when we really serve as a channel for them, they attract a different ray, which is also present here. But it is present here through the sixth and the seventh ray, which is the first. So these two attract the first one. They attract this will and power spiritual will and power, and these three rays together, devotion, order, and will, spiritual will, which comes here when devotion and order are very united, then these three rays start the work of developing our right conscious. So these three rays start to develop the cosmic plexus in the right conscious. These rays start to merge the old chakras, and then they start to awaken this cosmic plexus of our right conscious. This is an inner work here that takes place as we fulfill our devotion and as we fulfill everything with order. So if this cosmic plexus starts to be developed with these three rays, we are already a field for other developments, for other inner works. The inner work of awakening the right side of the cardiac area, but here it's necessary for the second ray and the fourth ray to enter. For the second ray to enter as a component and be as important as our basic rays in creation, the development of this right cardiac area, it's necessary for us to really reject attachment. So we only feel attachment for something, whatever it is, we need to reject that. Send it away, every kind of attachment. Then the second ray will permeate all of this and will create a loving environment, because up to this point there could be a lot of love, but this sublime energy would be missing. This connection would be missing, which only comes when we reject all kind of attachment. This is the opposite of human mechanism. When humanity loves, it becomes attached. This is the opposite. We have to reject all kind of attachment in order to receive this in a pure way. This only comes afterwards because this is very pure, very impersonal, and can only be known after rejecting all kinds of attachment, of involvement with people and involvement with situations. So while we involve with people, while we involve with situations, while we become attached to that which happens, there is no possibility of developing this right cardiac area in the right conscious, and we will continue to live based in the old chakras, solar plexus, etc. When this is all to be synthesized through the second ray and transforming into this great attraction that the right cardiac area starts to do. But for the right cardiac area to be developed, this is a more elevated work here. And figured it's necessary for us to reject every kind of conflict, every kind of conflict. So when a conflict begins, this should be rejected, this should not be nourished. Conflicts of all kinds and also dualities. To have our feet on two boats. When you have your feet on two different boats, when you do something which you wouldn't like to do, when you do something that does not correspond to your consciousness, when you are in duality, this prevents the fourth ray with the second ray to begin this development of the right cardiac area. And the third inner work here in Figueira is the coming of the two other rays, the third and the fifth ray, which are also part of our life, especially at the moment of beginning the stimulation to our right center cerebral area of the right conscious. So the third ray and the fifth ray will enter with all their fullness, their plenitude, when we control this natural impulse that we have to run all day long after external activities, forgetting about all this. So it's very simple and easy for us to forget all this inner work which should be done within us, and to be distracted all day long with external activities without remembering about this. And so that there should be no spaces for us to become lost in external activities, this inner process, this inner work should be present all the time in our external activities, because then in our external activities we will have the possibility of practicing all these rays. So our external activities will be permeated by this inner light, this inner energy, because external things are not done here. We do not work for the action itself. We work here to divinize action. We work here to place light within matter, to place light, love, order, ascensional order, spiritual strength in everything that is done. So here, the right cerebral center begins its work of awakening. This right cerebral center, which counts with the second ray, which is this whole activity permeated by this intention and this spirituality, also counts on the fifth ray, as it has been said. And this fifth ray is unable of permeating our lives if we emit judgments, if we judge others, if we emit judgments that are based on misconceptions, prejudice, fixed ideas, which are based on things which do not come from within us. So those are judgments that we naturally make based on our experience, based on what we think it's right, based on the laws that we know. But all of this prevents the fifth ray of flowing, because the fifth ray is not prejudice. The fifth ray is not the judgment. So the right cerebral center, which is the most elevated of this right conscious, cannot be developed. So this is the inner work here in Figueira. It's a work open to all, but energy is there, and energy works within us, and all of this takes place innerly within us when we are in these rays, and when we are very attentive and we reject everything that is the opposite of the work of these rays. And inner discipline here is for us to adhere spontaneously to these rhythms, because all of this creates a rhythm within us, all of these rays, and this aspiration will create a rhythm within us, an environment. And inner discipline is for us to adhere to this rhythm, because this rhythm which will take place within us, the state which will be created has nothing to do with the states that we know. In our personality, in our emotional astral body, in our etheric physical body, or our mental body. This is a different rhythm that starts to be imprinted on our bodies and lives. And inner discipline is for you to provide your adherence to this, for you to work on yourself, to change your rhythm, to change your way of being. And our inner being, our superior being, or our monad, depending on the nucleus that is more in contact with us, this will give us impulses, and this will give us the strength, the possibility of adapting, of adhering to this discipline and developing this discipline, molding us to that which comes from within us through all of this work which is taking place there within. And this inner discipline, for you to have this kind of discipline, it's necessary to not only desire but to practice 3 things which are very stimulated by the inner self when we want to seek and develop them, which is simplicity, order, and harmony. So here we have simplicity. In the 2nd ray, we have this order in the 7th ray, and we have this harmony in the 4th ray. So these are several things that take place, one thing connected to the other, and which provides a very wide work. So inner discipline is what is in the depth of all this. A different work of Figueira is inner healing. This inner healing, which is these energies, especially the 2nd ray, this inner healing will merge, synthesizing, aligning our human will with our spiritual will, because our human will is one thing. It's usually the opposite of the will of the spirit. So inner healing here is not the healing of any disease. It's the alignment, the merging of these 2 wills that exist in everyone. And some beings have such a strong human will and so unpolite that they believe their human will is the will of the spirit. And they really believe that it is so. No human will corresponds to the will of the spirit. None. There is no human will that corresponds to the will of the spirit of that individual. So this inner healing is the merging of these 2 wills. It's for you to start recognizing that your human will is a deviation, and only after that human will starts to unite to the spiritual will, and the spiritual will envelops all of that and makes it a will that is possible to be fulfilled, but it's not your will. In the will of the spirit, no human beings would bear to fulfill it. But this healing, which is this kind of descent to a human plane, the will of the spirit, and this elevation of human will to a level where these 2 wills can merge, this is the inner healing that is done here. So none of us could say that we do the will of the spirit, because in order to do the will of the spirit, I don't know if we can be in a body. the will of the Spirit should descend to a level that it is possible, and human will should rise. You see what rays do here in groups. So it's the work of several rays in individuals and present in the structure of Figueira itself. And this inner healing, on one side, it will merge these two wills, but it will not let the Spirit without its impulse. It's not that we can't merge this will at a more elevated level, that the energy will stop impelling the Spirit to its highest point. This takes place within us at a monad level, at a spirit level, so that these levels, these rays which merge human will with spiritual will within us, these very same rays impel the Spirit to return to its source, to return to its origin. In other words, these rays will impel the monad to elevate itself to immaterial evolution. This is why here in Figueira we ask for simplicity. What is superfluous would not be possible here. For this to be elevated to this all happen, so that all of this can happen, and returning on the way of return to its source of origin, which is a very hidden and profound work of Figueira, of the rays which are here. Faith and intention of transforming oneself is that which in human life we should have it very present, which is not to doubt that this is what happens to us. Because what happens to us here, it's not that we gain weight or lose weight or sleep well. What happens to us here are these things, which is a whole inner work within us. And we must have faith that this is so. Because if we doubt for a moment that this, any other kind of apparent work will be mechanical, because it won't receive the blessing, the energy of this other work. So externally, you're working with pride, with authority, with involving with your own work, with fanaticism. All of these things begin to enter because you doubted. You were not complete in your faith. You're not surrendered with faith, so that all of this may take place with a lot of freedom and the intention of transforming yourself. Because if you are submerged into this work, if all these rays are working on you in this sense, and if you have that secret intention of not being upside down, of not having your legs up in the air, if you still have that doubt, if you should be different, all this work is relative. So you will be in Figueira, but you're not really living this. You're not participating in what really takes place innerly here. And this healing, which draws us closer to all of this, the healing that allows all of this to be lived within us, because this is inner healing, it's not the healing of a hospital. This healing will depend on the cultivation of silence and our openness to the heights. But it's not an openness simply devoted, it's an openness to the heights with the permission that we give, so that we can be filled by this whole transformation. And then we can feel and perceive all of these rays here. And the sixth ray will keep us risen so that we do not fall or deviate during this process. And the seventh one will maintain this rhythm, this movement. The seventh maintains this an orderly life with rhythm, which can be sought here. It's not about an external activity, it's about adapting our bodies to these processes, which cannot take place without this inner order, without this rhythm. This inner rhythm that we can even have it visible to those who are practicing it. Because if we do something without rhythm here, or if you do it in the wrong moment, or very slowly or rapidly, those who are connected to this process will notice right away. They will notice right away that this is not correct. And then we should have the aspiration and the strength of the soul and the strength of the spirit to place all of this in the right places, which is the surrender to this inner work, to this inner discipline, and this inner healing. And of course that with our minds speaking a lot and with our mouths speaking a lot, this cannot be done, because silence and openness to this transformation are two requirements which are indispensable. If it is only the personality seeking this with second intentions of being happy, of being healthy, these are second intentions of the personality. This is not a pure intention of doing it to do it. Of course, the individual will not have the strength and stimulation to persevere. There will be moments of surrender to this process and development of that process, but they will not persevere. And for them to persevere, it's necessary to have this impulse within them. So there could be beings in Figueira who persevere, and those who persevere, it's because the soul is sustaining them. And those who do not persevere are those who are still walking with their own strength, are those who are walking with the good principles of the personality, the good human desires. So they need to walk a little, get distracted, go back to the past, walk backwards, go to their past desires, and all these things which are the lack of sustenance of the soul, the lack of maturity of the soul. So it's a process that we can do with continuity if the soul is sustaining us. And it's a process that we stop or mix or control so that the strings do not break when the soul is not completely within there. When there are forces of the ego, of the emotional body, which is seeking to fulfill and do these works. Trigueirinho in the past, in spiritual groups, they had a lot of external discipline to reach the inner discipline. Why we can have a shortcut today? Why did we have a lot of external discipline linked to all of this, as we saw in spiritual rules? And today this external part is more relieved because the consciousness today has more possibility of understanding these things, and consciousness today does not need this. Consciousness does not need the imposition of an external rule. It does not need it. It can do it by itself. It can do it by choosing it. And it's up to them, instead of the rule and just obeying, it's up to that consciousness to deal with that, adapt to that, open themselves to that. There's a work in the consciousness that is not done by the imposition. It should be done spontaneously by the individual. So this is why, although in external life we should have certain things that are consensual, there should not be repression, imposition, because otherwise we will go back to past laws, which is not up to the consciousness of today. Although today's consciousness need to remember certain ancient things because it could be in their unconscious, and we have a lot of classic works that remind us of all these ancient rules for us to refine this and immediately put this into practice, because we chose it, because we chose this, and not because we are being taken by a rule. So there are several levels of work in Figueira, and some are working in a level, others are working in another one, others are working on many levels, and silence is very good to all of this. So when we say that silence is good for all of this, it seems like we are asking you to be muted. For no one. All of this should be seen with all the others, so that silence can be something healthy and not something sick. And so that for all these things, this may not be exclusive. As there are several rays present here, there is no reason to be exclusive or no reason to be fanatic.